Hello and welcome to the Screen Chronicles. I'm Colby. With me as always is Steve. And if you're listening to us, you will know our special guest today as Lord Æthelred of Mercia from the Last Kingdom. You may also recognize him as King Francis II from Reign and as young Albus Dumbledore from Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows Part 1 and Fantastic Beasts, Crimes of Grindelwald. Toby Regbo, welcome to the Screen Chronicles.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
You got it.
How you doing today?
Yeah, I'm pretty good. I got some good news this morning, but I can't talk about. I'm already saying something I can't talk about. But I've got some good news for the for future acting projects. That was nice to wake up to. Yeah,
that's got to be nice after, especially the quarantine and just not being able to get involved with anything and all the uncertainty.
Yeah, it definitely felt like maybe there'll be no film industry again. I think like they're having to adapt and find new ways to work around the virus and have testing and trying to social distance, but things adapt, which is great. So we will survive.
Absolutely. So how have things been where you are right now as far as the virus and everything? How is it now?
For me personally, because I was in my flat for most of the time. It felt kind of remote. I read a lot of news. But my experience of it was just, I actually found the time to be forced to be alone, basically.
Sure.
And to slow down, especially with acting, often feels like this rat race that can cause a lot of anxiety of just being like, I need to work, I've got to work, and actually having this kind of government sanctioned alone time. It's like you cannot work. Was actually, for me personally, great. I know it's obviously also at the same time a really, really horrible thing. Mm-hmm. But just to be able to sort of refocus and see that, like, okay, I don't have to be, I don't know, forcing myself into this perpetual work machine was actually was good for me. I did a lot of art, basically. Got into drawing. Yeah, you can't see it, but my whole kitchen has been overtaken by art supplies.
Nice. Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Were you into it before, or is that something you just picked up during the quarantine?
Not really. I did art at school, but I hadn't done it in years, and I kind of dedicated myself to it in this militant way. Like, this is not very artistic, I suppose, but there's this thing called the New Masters Academy, which is a website. Okay. Has all these teachers, just video tutorials, but some really, really, really good artists like Steve Houston and other life drawers, anatomy, tutorials, and I signed up for this Russian Academy drawing course. So it's like, it's the equivalent of the Russian ballet, but for art. So it's like you draw the skull from every single angle, draw it 100 times, draw it until you can see it in your sleep, draw it in your dreams, kind of thing. And you move very, very slowly through the body, through the anatomy.
That's interesting.
But yeah, it's great.
Do you consider yourself, some people are natural drawers, it seems like they can just pick up a pencil and make anything look good. I'm somebody who's not. I know Steve's pretry good at drawing. Yeah. What do you consider yourself? Were you...
I don't know. I think there's definitely a difference between the thing that I was kind of wrestling with was like, I think I can copy quite well. I've got like an analytical eye. But there's a difference between copying and communicating something, like the kind of I don't know, like you can learn a sentence phonetically, but it doesn't mean that you're communicating an idea through it if you don't really understand what this sounds mean.
Okay.
So trying to develop a style where you're actually communicating something rather than just copying what you see. I think that's the difference. I think that just comes with time.
Sure.
Time and practice. But this, yeah.
Absolutely. So we know your other artistic side. How did you become involved in acting?
I guess I fell into it a little bit when I was about I think when I was 12 or 13. I started going to a drama group called the Young Blood Theatre Company in London. A lot of my friends went. It was my Saturday mornings, basically. I went every week on a Saturday. Were terrifying. They were the basis of the classes was you'd be given a word in a group, and you'd have 10 minutes to come up with something. You'd have to just come up with something and devise a piece like that, and then perform it. So yeah, my teenage years from about 13 to 16 or 17, every Saturday were just filled with dread. But it was, I mean, just having to come up with something. But it was great, and it was a really, really great thing to learn young.
Sure.
To sort of think on your feet creatively. And Andrew Braidford, who ran that drama group, had an agency, or has an agency called the BWH Agency. And anyone that he wanted to represent from the group, he would offer representation. So there was a nice move into professional acting. So I got my first job through Andrew, I think when I was about 14 or 15, which funnily enough was Sharp's Challenge, which was written by Bernard Cornwell as well. Yeah. So that was my, but I mean, lots of people ask me that, like, how do I get into it? How do I get into acting? How can I get an agent? And I genuinely don't know. Like it's such a I don't know. I found a very, very particular avenue in.
You started pretty young, especially compared to some other people. When did you know you wanted to get into acting? Or did you know even before you started? Was it just something you were trying?
No, I didn't know before I started. It wasn't like a childhood dream from when I was very, very young. I think being on stage, or our version of a stage in the drama group when I was 13 or 14, sort of there was a interest there, like that I really, really enjoyed the thrill of creating and responding, and especially being with an audience, even though the audience was just like a bunch of teenagers who were my mates, I think that's where I was like, oh yeah, I think I want to do this.
Very cool.
I think it's tougher even to more like express yourself in front of people, at least for me.
Yeah.
Then you have to show maybe a different side that you've been showing them all this time.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
I know what you mean. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's kind of easier to be anonymous, but when the people that you want to like you in real life,
Yeah.
having to be vulnerable.
Totally.
So then from there, how did you get into The Last Kingdom then?
Just regular auditioning.
Yeah.
I auditioned in London.
Now, did you audition for season 2?
To say about that.
Okay. Were you a fan of the show? Because you came in season 2. Did you know of season 1 before?
I knew of it, but I hadn't seen it. And so once I got the job, I went back and watched the show, watched the first season, and that's the only time that I've joined something like that's pre-existing, and it was great because it was just really, really cool to watch a show that you really like, with the thought in the back of your mind, like I get to be on this. So
yeah.
I had a really, really strange first, or maybe one of my first days. It felt like I was just in the most incredibly realistic virtual reality experience of watching a television show, because I'd seen the show previously, and then suddenly I was on the set of it and being asked a question by David Dawson playing King Alfred, and just the thought in my mind, I was like, wow, this show is realistic. Oh shit, no wait, I'm in it. I'm actually in it, and I'm meant to be talking. Yeah, that's awesome. It was like a really, really realistic choose your own adventure.
Oh, that's so cool. Now, are you a fan of those sort of period pieces? Because you've been in Rain, which is another period piece. Is that sort of?
Yeah, I mean, it's basically all I do at the minute. Yeah. I just do period dramas across the board, and actually, my shows were getting earlier and earlier. I was like, I can't talk about the thing that I'm about to do.
Don't tell us.
It's another period.
Cool. We love period.
I think it's something to do with my hair. I just have old-timey hair. It's tied up.
I was going to say, it doesn't seem like when you're Æthelred or even in like the other stuff I've seen you in, it doesn't seem like they do anything to your hair, like compared to when I see it off screen.
Yeah, it's basically the same. I think I've got Renaissance hair, so that helps. It's not through anything that I'm choosing, on purpose.
Okay.
But I do really enjoy it. Like there's a bunch of things that come with doing period dramas that are really fun. Like battles and horse riding, and really, really, really good costumes. And usually a kind of like heightened emotion and heightened drama where things are really, life or death, that you don't get in the kitchen sink drama as much.
Cool.
So yeah, all the things that surround being on a period drama are really, really great. There's usually just like fire and smoke, or people on fire, somebody running through a field on fire. There's always something cool to look at when you get to work.
Jumping off of that, then this season was your first, I guess, big battle you were in. You were at the end of season 2, but this one, I remember when we first saw the trailer for this season, we get to see you riding in on horseback with
that was so cool.
It gets us so pumped.
I was like, Æthelred seems like he might be cool this season here.
I know. Yeah, I'm glad that they gave me those scenes. Or let me be a part of the battle, because I mean, in season 2, it sort of seemed to be established that I was bad at fighting.
Yes.
I had like one moment in the battle, and I'm almost immediately knocked to the ground.
Well, you were going against Siegfried.
Yeah, you were going against Bjorn though.
You're going against Siegfried, so
yeah,
that's a tough match.
Yeah, who wouldn't he knock down? I mean,
yeah, in this season when I was doing my stunt rehearsals, I've still got the videos on my phone of you just basically doing this, and like massive 7-foot dudes just letting you kill them, which is quite satisfying. They just run at you, and you do a little move, and you're like dead, you're dead. That scene on horseback. Oh, maybe I shouldn't reveal the mystique of it, but the way that we shot that was me and Jamie Blackley, who plays Eardwolf. I think it's just because of a logistics thing. Not because our riding is bad.
Yeah.
But they put you on mechanical horses.
Really? That surprises me.
Yeah, they put you on mechanical horses that are attached to a trailer and attached to the camera. So I think it's just so that they can keep the distance between you and the camera, at the same distance through the whole shot. So the way that looked on camera was absolutely badass. And I felt like a badass, like, charging into battle. The way we shot it was driving quite slowly across a Hungarian field, shouting "charge" on just the tops of horses with just mechanical, basically like Meccano underneath, just trying not to feel silly and being like, I am a badass. This will look badass, just not from this angle.
I think they did show that from behind the scenes, that they were they didn't injure horses. They were like throwing out like big dummy horses into the pits and things. It was fun to watch. It was just like these big dummy horses just going into the pit. But like when you're watching, you're like, man, how did they not kill like 100 horses right there?
Yeah, no horses were hurt.
Oh, yeah.
Were hurt, yes. I swear.
So I imagine that's probably why they did it there as well.
But just seeing those behind the scenes, too, of the production of that battle.
Yeah.
You were on the show since season 2. How has that, like, the production value changed since then, from your eyes?
Yeah, I mean, it's you constantly have to up your game, basically, right? It always has to look bigger and better. And I think it has, which is, I mean, it's not because the budget has doubled. I think it's just through practice and fine tuning and honing it and we work with the same people basically every season, and I think stuntmen and stunt coordinators and directors as well, they all want to bring something new and have a trick up their sleeve, or like pull a move that they a new move, or are in using more fire or more body burns or things like that. There's always a chance to like have a really, really, really cool, interesting shot. But I mean, I still think about Jamie Donohue's shot that Jamie Donohue directed a couple of episodes in season 2.
Season 2, yeah.
I can't remember if it was episode 6 or 7, where at the end of the episode the Danes ride into a camp and it's like a single shot and the whole thing is first person.
Yeah.
And things like that. I mean,
we had Chaz Bain on and we talked about it
did you?
extensively. Yeah, it was what a shot.
I was so impressive. I was so impressed by that the first time I saw it. And that kind of thing where a director will like use pure ingenuity to create what's the word, to make it look big budget, you know.
Yeah. Oh, totally.
More of a
on screen value.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Incredible scene.
So then in the battle then too, you actually have some really good beats as well. And
it looked great.
How was it? Yeah. How was it being in that giant mass of people and fighting and all that? How was that for you?
Hot. It was really,
that's the
really
first
hot.
thing everybody says when we ask about
Is
that.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's really, really, really unavoidable, like unavoidably hot. Like, I didn't really know that about Hungary before I went. I was like, oh, it's in Europe. It won't be like, 40 degrees, but it is 40 degrees.
Oh.
I don't know what that is in Fahrenheit, like 180 degrees Fahrenheit.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
That's it.
It gets really, 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 really hot. But once you get over that and just the kind of general discomfort of feeling like you're in a wetsuit or a sweatsuit, it's a really, really particular kind of mental space of not thinking. Because once you think, I think it's the same thing with all sports and most physical activities, that like once you think about it, it's ruined, or you won't be able to do the move. So, and there's the urge to want to think, because you're like, if I think about this, if I really think, then it'll be really accurate and really great and really precise. But actually thinking about it doesn't help.
Interesting.
Which actually kind of translates over into acting as well. Thinking generally is not where you want to be. Yeah,
not when you're doing it, right? Like,
yeah, you want to just be doing it basically.
Cool.
So the moment you think about it, it's kind of gone. So that was my first real foray into a coordinated sequence. I've done a little bit, but that was my first kind of bit of battling.
So what was the preparation like for it?
You have a couple of days, couple of stunt rehearsal days. But actually what happens is, as soon as this is always the way, is like once you get to set, there's some thing that hasn't been factored into you rehearse it in a big sports hall, and then when you get there, you're like, oh, actually, because the ground here is this high, or the camera has to be here, we need to change the move. So usually there's a last minute change. You like rehearse something for 3 days, and then they're like, okay, actually, can you just do it and do it backwards, or cut that bit out, or actually they're going to be coming from this way rather than the left. So you just have to kind of think on your feet.
Very cool.
Or unthink on your feet.
I'm thinking.
Yeah.
It's interesting. And you mentioned about how you don't want to think about it. I think the set design, the costume design do such a good job, at least from what we've heard from other actors as well, of putting you guys there in the world. And you mentioned earlier about how you're kind of...
Yeah. My acting coach says that a lot. Like, you don't have to act it. You don't have to... There's all this stuff is done for you. Yeah. So you don't have to... I don't know. Sometimes if you feel like getting into character, or like you have... Part of it is that you have to explain everything, Right. Like, I'm from the 900s, so I must be like I'm from the 900s. But is that no? It will look like the 900s. All you have to do is stand there, and it will look right. So that a lot of the job is already done for you. And if you try and do those things, then you'll end up being a hammy actor.
Yeah. Okay. Interesting.
Do too much.
Yeah. So then you kind of get pushed down into this ditch.
Yeah, I get ditched. Yeah,
and you get ditched.
Yeah.
And we joked. I think we joked in one of our podcasts. Somebody should have hit Æthelred in the back of the head a long time ago. Because of how it changed.
It was a long time. It was a long time coming.
No, but
it was a kind of accident. I mean, it was just. Shit happens.
Yeah, he was going hard in battle, and it just kind of got pushed into the ditch, and there was nothing there, so he fell back. But talk to us a little bit about that kind of shell shock scene that you did from the fall and then getting back up. How was that to shoot?
I remember it being quite technical in terms of the beats and how long they needed to last. So that was on my mind when we were shooting it. I think I just tried to make it to take acting out of the equation by just genuinely winding myself, basically. If you take an actual fall to the ground backwards, not hitting my head, but just genuinely hitting the ground, that kind of takes care of the.
Takes the wind out of you.
Of the physicality of it, exactly. I don't know what else I remember. I like getting like in the dirt a bit, you know, like like getting really, really, really physical. And so I think I hurt my leg a little bit or something while we were shooting that sequence. Nothing major, but actually kind of like getting dirt under your fingernails and scrabbling up that hill. There's something really, really satisfying about that, when you don't have to pretend, when it is really, really happening. And also there's, especially with shooting battles and stuff, there's like never enough time to do anything. And so doing a lot of takes, you know, back to back, and kind of putting yourself through the ringer a bit, not in any kind of serious way, but just putting stress on the body for like, I don't know, 40 minutes or something, quite intensely. It feels quite satisfying, especially because Æthelred spends so much time sort of sitting on a throne and saying hello, you know.
Yeah, it was definitely cool to see you in the action, and like we said earlier, you look good too. You know,
thanks, man.
Like I think they do a little bit of slow motion, but like throw the sword up, slash down, it looked great.
Yeah.
Glad it turned out good.
And then we switch back to the awesome acting, and I don't think I've seen any characters before have such a change in like the last moments of their arc as much as Æthelred had. Yeah. And going into episode 5, maybe just generally talk about your approach compared to after you got hit in the head compared to what you've done before.
Yeah, I was really, really grateful for the writers to give me those scenes. It was such a nice turn.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of, I mean, that was when I was working on the character, trying to figure out what motivates this man. I think the turn at the end, what you get to see, is the kind of internal thing that I tried to work out at the beginning, which is that he's basically a terrified child inside, who is really, really, really scared to die. And so getting to explore that, it's not like it justifies his behavior, but it explains a little bit of how a guy like that operates. And it was really, really it was really nice to end on a really quiet note. Especially because when you're leaving a show, it is a kind of a death, you know, or it's at the end. Sure. It's the end of something for real, something that you worked on for quite a long time, and something that you know. I love everyone that works on that show, cast and crew. We have an amazing time working on it. So to kind of get to say goodbye in that way I was really grateful for that. I didn't just you know, if I just died in that ditch and not got to say bye everybody.
Yeah, definitely. And it was definitely go ahead.
It was just really well done too. It felt organic. It didn't feel like, oh, he's nice now, because there's still that back and forth between him and his wife Æthelflaed, and it was really good. What was that like?
Yeah, I don't think he was nice. I think he was terrified. You know, he was
right.
I think especially if living in that time period, the fear of fire and brimstone just on the other side of death, you know, the awaiting judgment. Or I mean, I'm not sure actually what the Christian understanding of hell was, but I'm sure it wasn't great.
I think they reference hell a bunch in the show, like the priests and stuff. Yeah.
So terror, absolute abject terror.
Interesting.
And obviously also the swelling of the brain. I'm sure there was a lot of pressure being put on some of the important bits.
Speaking of that too, Jamie Blackley, Erdwulf, comes in, and he actually kills you for standing up then for your daughter and for Æthelflaed, your wife, in those last months. What? How did he kill you there? Did he like twist your head?
What exactly was the cause of death?
Yeah, what was the mechanism of killing there? Did he like twist you to death?
It was like the tourniquet effect.
I was like, oh, he's like twisting like the tourniquet on his head.
Yeah, I mean, out of all the items on that table, he went with the rogue choice. You know, I'm sure there was. I mean, I guess he wanted it to look like it was an accident, or that it could have been an accident. He didn't just want to like stab me in the face, which was probably an option. But yeah, I think it was. squeezing of the brain. I don't know what to, too tight a brain, not enough space in his skull. I haven't actually seen that bit. So
okay.
I don't know about I saw it in the I saw it when I was doing the ADR for it. I made a lot of noises. I made a lot of horrible sounds. So yeah, I have
some behind the scenes footage of that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it with the full sound mix, so I don't know. I'm sure if you go into it in detail, you can hear what exactly it is, whether it's a watermelon exploding or
well, it wasn't the watermelon exploding. We got that earlier. From another character.
Yeah. Oh yeah, of course.
But could you talk a little bit about filming that scene, though, because it was extremely intense to watch and shocking for us as the viewer.
Yeah, it was. Yeah. I don't know if my mum was there on that day, but my mum actually I think was in Budapest for the last 2 days of my filming, which was kind of weird. Actually, bring your mum to work and die day is a bit odd.
Do you want to come see your son get murdered brutally?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I was kind of trying to maybe it shouldn't be this gross because I don't think my mum wants to watch my head explode.
My mom would still worry, probably, even if she knew it was acting.
Yeah, so I actually die in pretty much everything that I do. And my mum finds it quite upsetting. Even when I was the bad guy, trying to explain, I'm like, Mum, this is something that I definitely deserve. My character deserves this. It's been coming for a long time. She's like, but you're so nice. You're too nice. Not this time, Mum. I'm actually a bastard, I promise. Yeah, I mean, there was some. It was actually kind of difficult to shoot that with this. They had to have a stretchy bandage so that my head didn't actually explode, and just getting those technical things right took a while. Loads of blood.
Yeah.
Oodles of blood. I think I had some. What did I have? I had some kind of pumping system that went through my costume and up into my head. So that someone just literally with like a TNT style plunger.
I want that job.
Yeah. Yeah, the blood guy. I mean, like the blood guy. Yeah, it was. What can I say about that day? It was gross. It was really, really gross.
Yeah.
It's an odd part of your job, like dying over and over again.
Yeah.
Over the course of the day, making strange sounds and gurgling noises, and it's kind of. I think it's a fine line, the moment of death on camera. Sometimes you see it in films where people go. They
like Dark Knight or Dark Knight Rises. I was going to say Cheowolf when the first scene you're in when he just dies at the dinner table. It's an awesome scene. I'm not taking anything away from that guy. It was awesome.
It's the time period. People just dropping like
just
flies.
drop dead.
Just you want to ease out of life very, very gently.
The shot that they used right after you become late Æthelred, when it's on your face,
that was this really, really specific camera lens. I've never seen it before.
Yes.
I don't know enough about cameras. I'm sure James Northcott could tell you what it was, but it was really, really long and thin. Like most lenses are like this, and this was like a kind of telescope, but this long. And I don't know whether that was to get. I guess it's to get a really, really long depth of field.
I think so.
So that you can have something like a micro close-up shot of my eye in camera, and then also keep the rest in focus.
Jamie Blackley is still in focus back there.
Yeah, I presume he was in focus.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, definitely was.
Yes, I've never seen that camera lens before. They used it as well in the shots from behind my from behind my head when I'm talking to the king.
Interesting.
Yeah, very, very cool.
Yeah, this is cool. When did you realize that you were going to die in this season?
I think it was always part of my contract. Actually, I knew that I was going to do. Knew that I was going to do 3 seasons, and I knew that I was gonna die because of the books. But yeah, it's like bittersweet. I really, really love going to work. I loved going to work on that job. It's a really, really, really fun group of people, and it doesn't feel like work at all. You know,
that's awesome.
You know, off camera and on camera, it really is like just a fun job.
Yeah,
awesome.
Yeah.
It seems like you're really good friends with Millie Brady, who plays his wife Æthelred from the scene.
Yeah.
Does that make it easier then when you're doing like those intimidation scenes and that those scenes of like hate between the two of you, like that she is your friend, or
I know, it's so weird. We're like really, really good mates. I mean, we didn't know each other at all. We met on the show, so the first few, the really, really, really horrible, you know, me hitting her at the dinner table and things like that. We weren't that close. Yeah, I think if we had to do those scenes now, it would be really surreal. It would still be the same, but there would just be this added weirdness to it because we're so close. But yeah, love Millie Brady.
Yeah. So it's kind of nice to see you guys have, again, you weren't being nice, but you certainly had a redemption moment with her at the end, and you tell her something like, I hope that you can find comfort, and, you know, to live without being loved is a torture.
Yeah.
Great line. Love that line. Delivered perfectly. Yeah. How was that moment like?
I think, it was great for both of us, because I think we hadn't really worked together for a while. Our storylines had split off, and so it was really nice to sort of bookend the show and come back full circle and finish it with her. Filming is always, there's never enough time, but Andy, the director, made sure that those scenes were really handled with care. And there's just, I mean, often there's a vibe on set where it's like everyone has got to get their shit done, like in all departments, and so there's a lot of rushing around.
Right.
But sometimes if you're lucky, that an atmosphere can be created that everyone partakes in when it's very, very quiet and that between takes there isn't a kind of like cacophony and noise, and we had that for those scenes, and it does kind of it changes the atmosphere in the room, and you can kind of tap into that atmosphere a bit. It sounds a bit woo-woo, but there's just a feeling of like something sensitive being handled. That's really great. The scenes just get quieter and quieter, basically. Actors just want to make the scenes long and really quiet, barely talking, mumble for everything.
Yeah, interesting. So we just touched on a little bit. Now in Last Kingdom, there's some scenes that are they're gruesome. We see people get head blown up. We see people get stabbed through the neck.
But the shins was a particularly bad one. I couldn't stand the shins in season 1. The double Achilles tendon slice.
We see a bunch of that stuff. Yeah, some of the most uncomfortable scenes to watch are kind of the abusive Æthelred scenes with Æthelred. Could you talk to us a little bit about what it's like to do a scene like that? I
mean, it's I was pretty nervous about it.
Sure.
Because I mean, I've never played the bad guy before.
Okay.
And I'd actually just come off a show. I'd come off Rain, where I was the eternal good guy, and very, very loving and caring, basically all the time. So I was nervous about it personally. I was like, is this going to affect me? You know, it was, but actually playing the bad guy and being the person who is the sort of the person you love to hate. I mean, it changed a bit, because those early scenes are like genuinely distressing. Æthelred over time, I feel like, became more of not a comedic character, but he had a flair, a kind of an evil flair to him that was quite enjoyable. Originally it was like genuinely upsetting. And doing those kinds of scenes is like never pleasant in any way. And the director Jamie Donahue was like, you know, that's something that always needs to be handled with care, so that you're not glorifying anything. Just because cameras make things look good, like just the way that things are shot is beautiful. And so, I don't know. Sometimes I think about Meryl Streep playing Margaret Thatcher, and I'm just like, by playing Margaret Thatcher, just by Meryl Streep doing that, you make Margaret Thatcher look good. Like,
right.
Because you're like, oh, Meryl Streep is Margaret Thatcher, or Margaret Thatcher is Meryl Streep. You know, so just by putting something on camera is almost you're making a choice of, you know. So it has to be handled delicately so that you're not glorifying anything or
interesting.
Which I think we did
totally.
Those scenes came off like quote unquote well.
Right.
But then, but as the character developed, I feel like he got this kind of comedic element where it was more like he was not the jester, but like Æthelred's kind of dumb, or at least he's motivated. He's motivated. Well, he makes terrible choices constantly, and so it's fun as that character to be the person that the audience is going like, no, please, no, don't do that. You know, don't make these bad choices, while everyone around him, you know, is just trying to keep things afloat. So there was a turn that I enjoyed. I think he kind of developed even more into season 4, where the scenes got funnier and better. I was that was the one thing that I missed, or that I was ashamed to die for, that I didn't get to, you know, pursue that further and become even worse. If I don't know how much worse I could have got, but yeah.
There was a scene where Æthelflaed, when she comes back with Uhtred and them in season 3, and she says, "Oh, you don't seem surprised that someone tried to kill me," or something like that. And you're just like, "What about now?" Ooh.
yeah.
Fake surprise. That was amazing.
Yeah. God, he's such a bastard.
But that was like one of those funny scenes. I'll just die laughing after watching that.
Yeah. It's I feel like my role in it was, because the show's themes are about you know, there's honor and loyalty and brotherhood and destiny and fate, and you know, and just to be the person who just hates all of that. Just finds it like you're, you know.
That's cool.
Yeah, there's a bit where I don't think they used any of these takes, where in the second season, when Uhtred's riding back to our line in the battle, in the final battle, and someone shouts, "It's Uhtred," and I just get all these takes of just being like, "Uhtred? Who the fuck?" Like just being like, "Who the fuck is Uhtred?"
They should have done that line right there. That'd have been amazing.
Yeah. Being like, "Oh God, yeah, right, yeah, it's Uhtred. Yeah, of course it's fucking, yeah, okay, I get it. It's Uhtred."
That's funny. That's funny. Now, do you enjoy playing an antagonist?
Yeah. I really like it, actually.
Yeah.
What to say about that?
Do you prefer it over playing a good guy, or what would you rather do?
I kind of, now that I've got a taste for it, as long as it's got a kind of playfulness to it, like where you're just as an actor, like my job is to like just fuck with everyone and ruin their plans. That kind of thing is fun, you know. It's like the kind of thing playing the Joker. You know, Heath Ledger's Joker is just to like disrupt and ruin everything. So yeah, I can't talk about it. Yeah, so annoying. I can't talk about it.
All right, no, yeah.
But there's you know, my next project, I will be playing a kind of interesting mixture of the two, you know, good and bad layered on top of each other in an interesting way. It's fun to play both. They both have their own challenges and
interesting.
rewards.
I'd imagine it's kind of cathartic too, to be able to get a lot of that negative stuff out in a setting where it's supposed to be.
Yeah, it's also, you know, I like stabbing the messenger. That's quite fun. Killing the messenger.
we love that, and we love when Aldhelm goes, "You can't just kill everyone. It's 900 AD, dude."
Lord, you can't just kill people. This is the 9th century.
9th century.
Yeah. Be woke.
Yeah.
Woke, man.
Be woke. Come on.
Exactly.
Hundreds, man.
Be woke. You gotta get with the times, man. It's not just like the bat and like your anger and stuff. It's all petulance, you know. It's like like, why won't people pay me more attention? Why don't people like me? Kind of stuff that you get to vent. You know?
Yeah, totally. Now you always have like a falcon like on your left side. What's the significance of that guy?
It's just Chris.
Yeah. What's his name?
Chris.
Okay.
I like the idea that he's terrified of it, and that he's like always trying to like that he wants to look cool, but he can't like actually feed it because
he doesn't
scares the shit out of it. I think it's totally perfect for his character that he just wants to always have a bird of prey behind him. I think that's how he thinks of himself. I mean, maybe it's a good. I'm just thinking off the cuff, but like it's a kind of good metaphor for him. He thinks of himself as a bird of prey, but actually he's got a special hat on that makes him think it's nighttime. Like, you know, those birds are given like a special mask hat so that it covers their eyes so that they don't know that that anything's around. And I feel like that's the way that Æthelred is kind of treated. He's like, I'm a falcon. And they're like, okay, put your hat on. It's nighttime now. Yes, it's nighttime.
Alfred's got this.
Yeah.
You had a lot of scenes early on when you started out in season 2 and 3 with Outhound, James Northcote, and then again, even like how you said, even Millie Brady, you didn't see a lot of in the last season, season 4. So how was it, I guess, getting away from him and then being more with Jamie Blackley?
I just remembered that's the scene that James and Millie are in, where he says, "I look like a Dane." And they laugh about it while they're having it. And then we have a great line which says, "This meal is intolerable. I have to vomit."
Yeah.
I don't know. That just came into my head.
That's right after you tell him to get close to her too.
Oh yeah. I mean, what was I thinking?
Yeah.
Odd move. I kind of I try and find an exact replacement for Aldhelm. Another like what I think is a lackey who's under my control and is actually orchestrating my demise. I've got a kind of odd bit of a relationship with Eardwolf where I constantly am telling him that I'm trying to sleep with his sister.
Yeah.
Always fun for him. I don't even think that's like that he might not want to hear that. I'm like, I'm gonna have sex with your sister.
Yeah.
Basically the first line of season 4. Being so pleased with myself.
Yeah.
It was great working with Jamie. I shot a movie with him when I was 19 called You Want Me to Kill Him, which is about internet catfishing. And he stabbed me in that as well. He almost I've got a long history of Jamie trying to kill me.
So, next thing you're in with him, you know that's going to be your last season or whatever. Whenever he shows up.
I mean, like, Jamie's on the job. Oh shit! How will I go this time? Yeah, he didn't quite get the job done in that one actually. If you watch those films back or watch those scenes back to back, I mean, it goes from stabbing me in an alleyway as school kids to going back in time to finish the job, and
that's right.
Quite a novel way of crushing my head with the tourniquet.
Yes. That is awesome.
And even I guess going off of that too, you stabbed James Northcote at the end of season 3.
I stabbed him with a very small knife.
Yeah,
not a deadly knife. You know,
I didn't think he was coming back after that. And he survived.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if it was totally historically accurate, then any wound is like a death sentence. You know, like if you fucking sprained your thumb, you're like definitely gonna die. The only medicine that they had was just leeches. The best thing that they could offer you was just leeches. You know,
just picturing coming in with like your thumb a little bit bruised and like
and being like, I'm sorry,
nothing we can do.
No. Yeah, that'll spread and eventually it'll be an abscess in your brain.
Go make peace with your God.
Yeah, exactly.
What was it like doing that scene? Because that scene, you bring a certain intensity with James Northcote. A kind of rift has been building between you guys. You've noticed that he's starting to change allegiance.
Yeah. The director on that episode, Jan, he's this Belgian guy, and he's just fucking brilliant. Like, he's really into play, like playfulness on set. Like, Like he starts these every day with like a joke, like a mime that you're like, okay, whatever. But it actually kind of sets the tone where he'll just like pass you a cigarette that isn't there, and everyone has to like have a drag on this on this fake cigarette, or he'll be like, run towards me, and then you like run at him, and then he like will not throw you but throw you into the air, and then be like, wow, you did like 20 backflips. You're like, it kind of creates this really childlike atmosphere. He's really into transcendental meditation. He does it every day, and so he's like really chilled out and really
Super
into
cool.
play. And so doing those scenes, even when they're kind of intense and I'm stabbing the people who are meant to be my friends, there's a kind of joy to the way that he works, where like it's difficult to tell actors that they're good and that they're bad. Like not bad, but if you give someone a compliment, then they'll want to do the same thing that they just did, which will be make it wooden. And if you tell them that give them a criticism, then they might get really self-conscious. Right. So he does a different thing where it's like it's all about joy and about like exploring and being genuinely excited about it. So it's not like, oh, you did great. It's more just like, wow, what if we tried this? And it's a really, really fun way to work.
That's awesome. Yeah. And that was kind of a funny scene, because you stab him and you're like, if you recover from this, like this is what you're gonna say. And I'm just like, I'm just like, he's dead. Like, he's done.
It was a pen. It was a pocket knife. It was the 900s equivalent of a Swiss Army knife. Not deadly, and I'm sure very clean. I
mean, people were tough back then.
Sterilized.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, is there anything that you love about your character Æthelred?
No.
No. Okay. I just most of the time when I ask that question, it's like, what do you love about your character Æthelred?
I really enjoy playing him. The thing that I enjoyed when I started that show is my acting coach and friend Orlando Seal gave me some good advice about things being uncomfortable, like the throne being uncomfortable, the crown being uncomfortable, the dress, like literally I wear a dress, being uncomfortable, or a long tunic, and not pretending that they're comfortable.
Interesting.
And not pretending that you're comfortable. And actually it's quite fun to play a king or a prince, or becoming a Lord King who doesn't know how to sit in his own throne, and like doesn't know how to. You're always always trying to like readjust and being like fucking shoulder pads, stupid, and actually, not trying to find a cool way to sit, but actually it's much funnier to see a king who just has absolutely no idea how to do it. So I enjoyed that, because when I got it, I was like, oh, I'm going to have to play this, strong guy, but actually just giving into all of these, like, oh God, what am I doing? I'm bored, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Bring me some berries or something. It's actually a more interesting way to play it.
Yeah, matching the body language to Æthelred, quite a bit. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, my coach always says, like, what do you get for free? How do you actually feel? And it's like, well, I'm hot and this crown is uncomfortable. It's like, perfect. That's great. Don't have to do any acting.
Another scene that I love that you have to do is when you have to come back and tell Alfred that his daughter's just been taken. And you try to sell it best you can. You try to sell it.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about doing that scene? Because you get scolded by like everybody in the room.
Yeah. David Dawson, who plays King Alfred, or played King Alfred, is an incredibly laser focused actor. More than probably anyone else I've ever worked with. Like, his stare or glare is genuinely disconcerting when he's in character. Because sometimes there's like even though you're in character, you're kind of aware that that it's a scene that you're playing, and so there's no once cut is cool, it's you're not still terrified of somebody, but when David really zeroes in on you, it is genuinely disconcerting. And he also is like brings his A game for like every take in terms of delivery, and it's so it's so measured and so kind of, I don't know how to describe it, like stripped back. There's no, it's just exactly what it needs to be. That, you know, it forces you to sort of respond. Yeah, so any time that David is scared of me, I probably am genuinely scared.
We were joking the other day. We have a presidential election coming up, and we were just like, "Can we just have Alfred come over here?" And David Dawson's Alfred. That's what we prefer him. Just
yeah.
But
yeah, you kind of got an Æthelred versus a, I don't know who. What should I
yeah, we definitely have an Æthelred. Yeah, both coming on. Interesting though. Yeah. Now your costume, you always look pretty regal.
Yep.
And did you put any input into your own costume, or did you kind of let, like Molly Rowe, who we had on before, she has a lot of great input into people's costumes, obviously. And, She mentioned how she dipped your crown in gold, I think, and
yeah. I mean, I every time we have a costume fitting, it's conversation, and she brings, you know, a wealth of ideas, and then you talk them over. I mean, I never had any problems with, or you know, I loved what I wore. I thought it was great. Anything with fur trim and my kind of like useless armor that's all for show, you know, looks great, totally pointless, you know, couldn't, you know, just kind of like little bits of chainmail here. Right. You know, this, I thought that was a great touch for his character, that it's kind of, it's all for show, you know.
Yeah.
And I had a huge ring. I had like a kind of, I don't know when you get to see it, how clearly you get to see it, but it was like a Super Bowl, you know, one of those rings, with, you know, like huge piece of gold.
Is that the one Airwolf steals?
Maybe, yeah, it would, yeah, it would be. Steals my rings. Those costume fittings are just great, basically. Yeah, it's always just exciting to see what she comes up with.
Now, Steve and I are also pretty big Harry Potter fans. And so we got to ask you while you're on about what was it like to kind of take on the young version of Albus Dumbledore, because that's pretty sweet.
Yeah, it's basically like the best cameo ever.
Super cool.
Yeah, because me and Jamie Bauer, who played the young Grindelwald, are the only two people who are in both film franchises, even though we're only in it for like a tiny amount of time. But it is like a nice little bit of bragging rights, I guess. Yeah, I mean, when I worked on the first Deathly Hallows film, but only for like, you know, an afternoon, just so that they could get this moment, and then being asked to come back to do the role for Fantastic Beasts was just was great. That kind of set experience it's like what I was talking about being on The Last Kingdom, but like times 1,000. Like every single thing there is handcrafted beautifully, you know. I mean, I'm not saying, I made it sound like The Last Kingdom doesn't do that.
No,
I just mean
but
just it's the scale of a set like that.
Yeah.
And all the effort that goes into everything is really amazing. I'm not a big, I don't really like CGI that much.
Okay.
But that's that kind of CGI, the fantastical CGI that I don't know what the name of their company is, that also did the Paddington Bear films, but that CGI is particularly good. And being photographed so they'll digitize everything, every piece of costume, every prop on the set, everything, the sets themselves, me. So I stand in a what do you call it, like surrounded by cameras, and they shoot you 360 degrees, and then create a computer model for you. Just that kind of detail that they can zoom in on, that kind of geeky stuff is the set to nerd out on, basically.
Wow,
it's amazing.
Now,
they have, yeah, go ahead.
Go ahead. Sorry.
I was just saying that they have the creatures department
Ooh.
But basically, when I got there, someone in a golf cart was like, "Do you want to just drive around in a golf cart and look at cool shit?" It's like, absolutely. I want to do that. You know, taking you through all the departments.
I've been waiting for you, guy.
By being on the tour.
Yeah. That's awesome. Oh man! So, are you a Harry Potter fan to begin with? Before you were
I mean, I read all the books on the day they came out. I was kind of the same age. Is Daniel Radcliffe older than me? Maybe. So yeah, but I mean, I was kind of Harry Potter age,
right,
at the same time as him when the books were coming out. So yeah, they were a big part of my childhood. I guess they're the only books that I read like that, on the day, you know, as a fan.
So you must have been so excited to be able to play Dumbledore. Like,
yeah, I know it's because it's such a you know, small part, but I also get to say that I am Dumbledore. So,
totally.
I say it's just like the greatest cameo.
And I think I've heard rumors of another Fantastic Beasts movie possibly being made. And I know that, you know, it would be cool if you could continue to be involved in that, because I know Dumbledore has a pretty interesting kind of, you know, young story with Grindelwald and his sister.
That
would be cool to see on screen, I think.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to do that, have more scenes. No, I know J.K. Rowling has sort of like revealed some things about Dumbledore over the years that weren't in the films. So yeah, I mean, obviously, I'd kill to get some more stuff.
Yeah, I know they had originally, I think, what was it, 4 or 5 of the movies, I guess, announced. I
think it's 5 films.
Do you know offhand
3 more goes.
If you are like guaranteed to be in any of those or anything now?
Okay, couldn't say. No,
okay, gotcha.
But that made it sound like I do. But
no.
Okay, yeah, interesting, but. Yeah, that's just so awesome to be in a Harry Potter franchise. That's got to be so cool.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
It's so cool. But yeah, so it would be cool to see, though, a little bit more of young Dumbledore, I think.
Oh, yeah, I definitely want to see that arc with him and his sister.
Ariana is her sister?
Yeah.
We'll go back to Last Kingdom just a little bit. Did you have any favorite moments from on set or any favorite scenes that you did?
Shooting the scene with Jamie Blackley where he comes to tell me that Mercia has been raided by the Danes. That scene particularly, that turn where I say that I'm going to have him killed. That scene was particularly fun to film.
Cool.
I mean, most of it was pretty fun. You know, especially the later stuff when I feel like the writers gave I don't know whether it was like a conversation between they wrote something, I did it a certain way, and then they pushed that thing a bit further, and then so I got to it, and then so by the 4th season he was kind of more a more dynamic character. But yeah, most of it was great. And I know this is what like every actor says about every job every single time they do an interview, but it was really, really fun to film it, and everyone on it is great. I know it's like everyone, even when people have the worst time, they still have to say everyone was great. But
on Last Kingdom, it seems genuine.
Not just saying it. It is honestly like the funniest group of people to work with.
That's awesome. And now earlier you mentioned when you first got into acting, doing those kind of improvisational thing where they give you a word and maybe it helped you develop a little bit of improvisation or creativity. Were there any moments in Last Kingdom where like that kind of thing came into Æthelred that?
I mean, actually, that's the one thing about period dramas is there is not much improv.
You're right.
Just because it's so story driven and it's such a particular way of talking that there isn't that much wiggle room to improvise. I've tried it a couple of times. I tried it on Rain a couple of times and never made the cut.
No.
Yeah, I think that's the one benefit of working in the present is that you can veer off script a little bit.
Okay, cool.
But not so much with Æthelred.
Interesting. Now we know that you mentioned you have something exciting coming up. We're not going to ask you about because you're not allowed to talk about it yet. But is there anything else that you have coming out in the near future that we can look forward to?
No, just this one thing.
Okay. And do you have any goals as an actor moving forward?
Yeah, I mean I would really like to write something
Okay.
I think almost every actor says that and is saying that they're writing something. I think the key to making that dream a reality is to not tell anyone about it, because the things that I've said over the years that I'm going to write have then just become a conversation of me saying that I'm going to write it. Do you know what I mean? It goes from being like you actually writing to something, and then when you tell someone you're like, oh, I'm writing this thing, they're like, oh, that's great, and then you're like, oh, thanks, now I don't have to write it because I've been given praise. So like you have to like keep it a secret. yeah. I promised once at a convention that I was going to write something, but I thought I was like, oh, if I put it out there, then I'll have to do it. But now that I've tried it, I'm so impressed by anything that's written in general. You know, it's such a, I mean, so I don't know, everyone's processes is different, and some people can write, you know, someone like Bernard Cornwell who like can write just the sheer amount of writing that he produces is like astounding.
Yeah.
But it is quite a slow moving process that's especially with filmmaking is like, well, trying to write a script is like House of Cards, basically trying to keep things making sense. And the latest thing the latest advice when I was explaining my idea to somebody who is a writer was just like, yeah, but what do they want? Because you've just told me a bunch of stuff that's like, sure, yeah, interesting stuff, and that's, you know, that's interesting, but like, what do they want? And if you don't have that, then you don't have anything. And actually, like, the more you try and like create around it, you know, like, or add more ideas and put more stuff on top of it, it's just masking the fact that actually your character doesn't want anything.
Interesting.
And when you like, it can be the simplest want, you know.
What would you say Æthelred wanted?
To be king of the world.
To be king of the world.
yeah. Ultimately, just wants to be king of the world. But yeah, if you need a drive, and then once the audience sees that, then they're on board and they want to see you get that thing, even if it's as simple as like, I want to have a sandwich, you know. But what on all the things that stand in your way is you being able to have a sandwich. But if all your ideas mean nothing without the want.
Interesting.
So it's like, damn, gotta go back to the drawing board.
Now, were you a fan of the Bernard Cornwell books before the show, or did you read them at all?
No, I've never read his never read his books, but I mean I've worked on two of his I've worked on two of his book series now. Like that's my latest work. I didn't read the books just because the scripts,
they do differ. They do.
They go on their own journey, you know, and I think you can get attached to stuff that isn't in it. And my job was just to.
Okay, cool. Well, one thing from the books that was interesting, I wanted to ask you, maybe you know, maybe not, is in the books, Uhtred and Æthelred are actually cousins in the book.
No, okay. I didn't know that.
I didn't know if there was something behind it. I didn't seem like they elaborated it at all in the show.
Yeah.
No.
We just read it first too.
Oh, that would have been a cool touch.
Yeah.
Actually.
I think in the third one they revealed. Yeah.
Really?
But yeah, so I was just curious if that was kind of like something they had talked about on the show. But it doesn't seem like in the show that's kind of like canon in the show world. It would have been a nice touch. I don't know. Do you know how he finds out? Well, I think he knows. Like,
he knows.
So,
but it's revealed.
Æthelred's father is Uhtred's mom, who Uhtred didn't know his mom.
Right.
It's her brother. And there's a time in the first book, I think, when Uhtred needs to kind of find refuge somewhere, and he goes when your father is still Lord. And I think he meets you there. And Æthelred in the book is also not the most likable character. But we haven't really gotten into, I'm in the third book right now. I haven't really gotten into more where Æthelred becomes really, not likable. Yeah. He's just kind of like annoying right now in the book.
Yeah.
Yeah. Such a curious.
Yeah. That would have been a funny little detail to put in there. I don't know how it would have changed the performance, but
yeah. I don't know in the book if it's that important.
Still hate his guts.
Yeah. They still don't like each other like that much in the books either. It's just because they're like so estranged, like.
Yeah. And I wasn't everyone cousins.
Right. So I mean, come on.
Family trees look more like bushes.
Yeah. And one thing we always ask our guests too is, have you watched anything interesting lately that you'd like to share or anything?
Yeah, what have I seen? My lockdown viewings have been. I've watched Succession again. I love Succession. Have you seen it?
No, my sister watches it though.
Oh my God,
she raves about the soundtrack for it too.
What is it?
She's played me the soundtrack, I think, for Succession. Like the music.
Yeah, it's got one kind of motif that it uses in every episode. Yeah.
Yeah, she showed me that. I like it.
Yeah, it's. I'm not watching it for the music.
No, I know. That's the only thing I know about it.
It's Brian Cox playing a media mogul. They say it's not Rupert Murdoch, but it's kind of like Rupert Murdoch. He's got a media empire, and his 4 kids are vying for the succession of that empire. And it's written by Jesse Armstrong, who made Peep Show, and he wrote Four Lions, I think, which is a hilarious comedy. And it's just really, 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 really funny, but like pitch black comedy, basically. And yeah, it's hilarious. And I've watched Midnight Gospel. Have you seen that?
No, I haven't seen that either.
Oh man, it's made by Pendleton Ward, who is the animator who made Adventure Time. And Adventure Time, yeah. So like Adventure Time, as it like progressed, had more and more kind of like. I mean, it is technically a kids show, but it had like a more adult theme running through it, and this like cosmic strand of storyline that was so batshit crazy. And Pendleton. What's it called? Midnight Gospel is like that, with just all the brakes taken off of it and just completely wild LSD fueled madness. Ooh. I mean, it's actually a podcast, I think, with Duncan Trussell. It's like the audio is a podcast interview between Duncan Trussell, who's a kind of he's a stand-up comedian, and he interviews guests about Buddhism or life after death or DMT and all things hallucinogenic. And then just over the top of it, Pendleton Ward has animated the most insane visuals you've ever seen in your life. So it's almost like too difficult. It's difficult to watch because like the audio is really interesting, but the animation over the top of it is like fully batshit crazy.
Oh, that sounds interesting for sure.
Yeah. That's been the 2 things. Oh yeah, and Debs is amazing. Have you seen Debs?
No,
yeah.
Sorry.
No, I haven't seen that either.
No, it's great. You got plenty of stuff to watch.
Yeah.
It's
now we got a good list here.
Yeah, it's that's what's his name? Alex Garland. His series that he wrote, and it's about what should I say without spoiling it? It's just about the implications of like what a quantum computer could do, like a computer that was so powerful that it could predict a lot of stuff. I won't say more but it's great. Yeah, it's kind of like a Silicon Valley, like tech company, Willy Wonka type madman who's made a very, very, very powerful computer, played by Nick Offerman. Is that his name? From Parks and Rec?
Yeah, Nick Offerman.
Yeah. And a very different look. He's not Ron Swanson. He's got a big beard, and he's got a big beard, and he's techie and mad.
Wow, interesting. That's awesome. Yeah. Well, cool. And Steve, do you have any other questions while we have Toby on today?
No.
Any questions, Steve?
No, but thank you for coming on. Yeah,
no worries.
It's been great.
My pleasure.
Yeah, and we'll link all your stuff down below, your social media, your Twitter, Instagram, anything else.
Yeah.
And we'll certainly miss you. I know season 5 is moving forward. We'll certainly miss you moving forward. And again, it's like, it seemed like we were waiting for like Uhtred to kill Æthelred or Æthelflaed to kill Æthelred, and all of a sudden you had a death that wasn't so like, hooray. It was like, oh.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool to see you go out like that too.
Yeah, I got some of the comments that I get that I receive about the show is that turn, and just being like, what did you do? Why did you make me like you a tiny bit? It was really, really grateful for those last few scenes. I wish I could tell you about the new stuff, but I can't.
We understand it, but we'll be looking forward to when you can. And we'll definitely be keeping track of you, because you've definitely earned our respect after we watched Last Kingdom as an actor, and then
Thanks,
to see
guys.
you in some of the other stuff. We're really excited for your future as well.
That's awesome. Thank you very much.
Yeah, so
Lovely
like
to
Steve,
talk to you.
Yeah, it's great to talk to you as well. And like Steve said, you'll have all your stuff linked below. Everybody else, please continue to check out our talks. We have more on the way. And subscribe, like, follow us on Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff. We're on Twitter now as well. But for now, goodbye from Screen Chronicles and Toby Regbo.
Bye.